Hi there, welcome to this pre-recorded session of our monthly Crystal Visions class for the Mount Shasta Goddess Temple featured in the Goddess Temple app. And I'm making this video today on the Big Island of Hawaii, where we are currently on retreat with several of the priestesses in our priestess training. Today, I'm going to be talking with you about some of the stones that are found on the Hawaiian Islands and what some of their meanings are. And we're going to address some of the best practices around working with these stones, as well as bring together a couple of different pieces of information that are very interesting about the stones of this region and our kind of cosmic order. I'm pretty excited to share today. We're going to have a slightly shorter class today than usual because, of course, I'm on retreat and about to take people on adventures today, but I am hoping that you'll enjoy this little demonstration about some of the stones of Hawaii. So I want to start by addressing the myth of removing stones from the islands as bad luck. There's no known origin of this myth exactly tracing it to the indigenous people of Hawaii. In fact, the indigenous people of Hawaii will often stack rocks and move them around from place to place. Obviously, if somebody of native Hawaiian origin were to want to take a stone with them from the island to go somewhere else so that they have a piece of home with them, it wouldn't be considered bad luck. So why is it considered bad luck when a tourist or somebody else comes and takes a stone? The kind of closest thing that we can figure out is that a park ranger noticed the large number of stones being taken from the island and sand and other things being taken from the island by tourists in the early to mid 20th century and blockaded that by creating this legend and telling people that it would be really bad luck if they were to take a stone. And that myth sort of spread, that urban legend sort of spread until it gained a lot of popularity and it became embedded in the cultural consciousness to the point where even to this day, the post office in Hawaii receives anonymous packages with stones that people have taken, and then they ship back, you know, maybe even in the hundreds every year because they've encountered a run of bad luck. And I think that, whether or not that's actually an indigenous Hawaiian legend or merely modern convention, this is a real symbol of how something can get into our cultural consciousness and become real. So I myself do not take stones from this island. I leave them where they are because the park rangers and the indigenous Hawaiians have asked that we leave the stones here. This is the birthplace of creation. Earth is formed from huge volcanic eruptions that happen both above ground and underwater. And those volcanic eruptions are what bring up minerals in their liquid flaming form from deep within the core of the earth to the surface where they cool and they become hard and then they break down and they become sand and soil. There are sort of a couple different types of volcanic rock on the islands of Hawaii. And today I'm going to talk about two of them. I have a photo aid here. Let me share my screen. So here we can see the two main types of lava that you'll see, especially here on the Big Island. The Pahoehoe lava, which is the smooth, almost folded frosting-like version of the lava, and the A'a lava, which is a very sharp and brittle and crumbly, but hard form of lava. These two types of lava are formed under different circumstances, both of which have to do with the mineral content of what is being brought forth from the center of the earth as well as the underlying structure of the lava itself. So like underneath the surface of both of these types of lava, there's a mineral structure that informs how it dries when it reaches the surface. The Pahoehoe lava is mostly basaltic. So that means that it's got a high basalt content. And when it flows very slowly, and it folds almost like frosting or batter. When it dries and hardens, it has this sort of ridged, bubble-like smooth formation. That makes Pahoehoe easy to walk on. It means that there are huge areas that are covered in Pahoehoe where it just slowly dribbled forth, either running down the side of a volcano or emerging up from the earth and moving in a slow drift. Sometimes Pahoehoe can move quickly compared to human speed, and we do see that happening when there's an active lava flow. Sometimes you'll see that the lava is moving like a river, as in 2018 when the Kilauea erupted and there was a tremendous river of Pahoehoe lava flowing. But the other type of lava, A'a lava, is formed, it's a little bit less basaltic, it's got more silica content, and it forms in sharp bursts. So the Pahoehoe is the lava that's formed with a flow, and the A'a lava is formed when there's more of an eruption or explosion that brings the material from within the earth up to the surface, and it hardens very quickly. In a lot of places on the Big Island and other islands, when you see A'a lava at a distance, it looks almost like piles of soil or dirt. It looks like it would be soft, and like it, you know, if you were to walk on it, your feet or your boots would sink into it like dirt on a farm, but that's not the case. It's very sharp, very hard, but also very brittle at the same time. And so walking on A'a lava can be pretty difficult. You can kind of experience like crumbling brittleness. It's uneven and unstable. If you fall, you're definitely going to scrape yourself up or hurt yourself. Whereas with the A'a lava, you can walk over it pretty smoothly. It's easy to walk on. Now, with the Pahoehoe lava, if you're walking on it, there is a risk that it will be cool on the surface, but very hot underneath. And so the real risk here of walking on the Pahoehoe lava is that you might think you're walking on something solid and then put your foot onto something that actually is really hot and really liquid beneath the surface. Whereas with the A'a lava, usually you wouldn't be anywhere near where it's being created because it's so explosive. So you wouldn't really be walking on it while it's still hot. So both of these different types of lavas have their, dangers, their distinct methods of creation, and their distinct appearance. And a lot of times people will want to bring home a little bit of lava rock from the Big Island or from one of the islands because it's so unusual. But we're encouraged not to do that. And it's not only because the islands need to be preserved for the people who live here, but it's also because this is the birthplace of creation. This is a place where Earth itself is being created. And so taking it away kind of interferes with the natural process of the soil production. And the soil production here on Hawaii and on any of the islands is really important to maintaining the balance of the ecosystem. So I'm going to stop my share. So we're going to talk about some of the other crystals and minerals that you find on the Big Island. Of course, being volcanic in nature, the Big Island does have obsidian. Obsidian is found on the Big Island most commonly at the Hualalai volcano, which is, let me get my my note. It is on the main island, on the Big Island. And this is the only place where glassy obsidian is found. Now, glassy obsidian, we know from previous classes, is an igneous rock that's found near volcanoes, other areas where there's been volcanic activity. It's found in Mexico, it's found in South America, it's found in, Mount Shasta, it's found in a lot of different places, and it's a very glassy stone. It actually looks a lot of the time like a glassy version of the Pahoehoe lava because it's got those ridges and rings to it. Obsidian, as you might remember, is a stone of transformation. It's a stone of fortitude and courage, strength, self-mastery, self-discipline. It's a stone of sharp, kind of cutting away anything that doesn't serve. It's also a stone that can be used to make a black mirror for scrying purposes, and obsidian mirrors are very popular for crystal gazing. Different places on the earth have different types of obsidian in different colors, but on the Big Island, the glassy form of obsidian is only found at the Hualalai volcano, and it does have an indigenous prohibition from being collected. It's illegal to collect it there because the indigenous people of Hawaii have maintained for generations and generations that you do not take that stone away from that volcano. Similarly, in Mount Shasta, where our temple is located, there's obsidian that's found on wildlands, and there's also a prohibition on taking the obsidian away. Obsidian can only be gathered in the Mount Shasta region if it's found on private land. And here, it's only found on the public lands near the Hualalai volcano. So if you ever come to the Big Island and you want to go and do a little rock hunting, just please know that you're not going to find obsidian widely available. It's really only in one area, and it's protected. It's a special and protected stone, and it's meant to stay there as an offering, as a gift, and as a blessing for the land and its spirits. Another stone that we see here in great volume, and this is really exciting, on the Big Island is Peridot. And I have this little vial of it here, a really beautiful green color. Peridot is a stone of wealth. It's a stone of balancing the mind and bringing clarity and acuity, mental acuity. It's great for problem solving. Peridot is also a stone of balancing our energies, our assertive energies with our receptive energies. It's primarily used as a stone of blessing and benevolence for those who have gone through a very hard time and are needing some type of rectification, some kind of a boon to come into their lives. Now, Hawaii is one of the places on the earth where Peridot is most readily available, and it's found here in its form as olivine. So olivine is, kind of the stone from which Peridot crystals grow. Olivine is a greenish stone, and it's a stone that breaks down very easily and creates sand. And in fact, there are green sand beaches on the Big Island and on other islands. Let's see, I have it in my notes. You can find, green sand on the Big Island. There's a whole green sand beach. You can also find it on Oahu Island, and you can find it on Oahu on the Papakolea coast. So people are discouraged from picking up the green sand or the olivine sand, peridot sand, because it's limited. There's not a lot of it. It's special, it's sacred. So when we're visiting the green sand beach, we don't bring some home. It's better to get, your peridot from, more of a commercial source than to collect it on the beaches in Hawaii, because we want to leave that green sand for those who want to come and enjoy the beauty. And over the years, a lot of people have taken home that sand, and it does create erosion. And when it creates, when human beings create erosion on a beach, that by taking the sand away, it's not like the earth can speed up production of new sand. The sand is still taking hundreds, if not thousands of years to form. So we can't really keep up with, the earth can't, really keep up with our demand for taking that sand. So if you come to the Big Island, do go visit the green sand beach, but don't take any sand home. In fact, tomorrow when I go, I bought this this vial, and we're going to take this and make offerings of this and leave it on the beach. We're actually bringing back peridot. Now, one thing that's interesting about olivine, you might remember from the meteorites class, is that olivine is also found in certain types of meteorites. So there's a really interesting cosmic geological connection between the olivine sand of the Big Island and the olivine that comes from meteorites, especially the palisite type meteorites that look like stained glass. Some of you might remember from that class, I showed images of those beautiful meteorites that look like a combination of metal and green glass. When there is this kind of connection between a celestial mineral and an earthly mineral, I always pay attention, because I think that is a place where we can connect with our cosmic ancestry, with the star beings, and with the beings that reside in the outer layers of heaven. And I think that for those who are interested in making a connection with a cosmic star guide, bringing together a piece of peridot and maybe a piece of palisite meteorite might be a really fruitful way to create that connection. Another type of stone that's found widely on the islands is quartz, which is found everywhere, silica-based mineral, really common, beautiful, great for everything. So if you come to the Big Island, you can find quartz. Let's see here. You can often find quartz, around some of the volcanic regions. In some of the volcanic regions, you also will find agates. Agates are great for soothing and calming, connecting with the kind of inner realms, creating inner peace, releasing outer strife. Agates are very soothing, stress relieving stone. And agates often will kind of tumble out into the ocean and be smoothed by the water. And you can often find agates on the beaches here in Hawaii, specifically Diamond Head Beach, Keiki Beach, and Kaunala Gulch Beach. If you find agates tumbling in the ocean, they'll often be smooth and they'll be glassy. And you can kind of see that they're almost translucent, but not completely see-through. They're a little opaque, but you can see light through them. That is not to be confused with beach glass. Beach glass is human-made glass that got put into the landfill and maybe sometimes ends up in the ocean, or someone threw their beer bottle into the ocean, or somebody threw a Coke bottle into the ocean, and the waves and the stone broke it apart and then eventually smoothed and etched it over time to where you see that it has the appearance of an agate, but it's actually glass. So there are lots of places on Earth where people will think that they're getting an agate, but they're actually getting a piece of beach glass. And that beach glass is a human-made, human-caused stone. It's not an actual stone. There's also on the island geodes. they're pretty rare. There are not a lot of geodes that you can crack open and find crystals inside, but on Maui, Oahu, and excuse me, Kauai, there are some places where geodes are found where you can crack them open, and inside you'll find, quartz crystal. Let's see here. The other thing that's found, and I'm going to share my screen again. Let's see if I can get this here. The other thing I wanted to share here is black coral. So this is actually this isn't a fantastic image, but I wanted you to see how it's used kind of in jewelry. Black coral is actually the official stone of Hawaii. Now, it's not a stone. Coral is a living being, but when the coral dies and detaches from the reef and is tossed around by the ocean, it's smoothed and it does become stone-like, just the same way we see other fossils, like stromatolite, which is fossilized algae. It takes on a stone formation after it dies. So even though coral isn't technically a stone, it is the official stone of the island of Hawaii, the state of Hawaii, and it's considered to be a very sacred stone. It's frowned upon to purchase black coral or to wear black coral by the indigenous people of Hawaii. It's really something that they consider sacred. It would be something that would be held as a sacred item. If you found a piece, it would be something that might be made into jewelry, like a necklace, something like this, but that would be worn by somebody who had achieved a certain status within the community of wisdom. It's not something to be kind of casually worn. And it's interesting because red coral is like that in other places on earth, like Tibet, and in Slavic countries, red and pink coral are worn in the same way. It's not necessarily something everyone wears. In Tibet, coral is found in the high Himalayas, which used to be ocean beds, and is added to turquoise jewelry as an accent. In Slavic countries, red coral is worn by married women in various different rope-like necklaces that are designed to protect the throat and the heart. So, there's specific usages of coral, and it's really important to note that in our world right now, as coral reefs are dying at a rapid rate due to human destruction of the oceans, like wearing the wrong sunscreen can really damage coral. People will break pieces of coral off of a reef and think it's a cool thing to bring home, or amounts of oil spills and other contaminants in the ocean. These damage the coral, and the coral takes, again, hundreds, if not thousands of years to build up the reefs. So it's not something that we would really wear or have as a casual piece of jewelry. Instead, it would be something that would be procured in a very special and sacred way, and maybe gifted to you as a part of a rite of passage. So if you're, ever in Hawaii and you are considering just like buying a piece of black coral jewelry from a vendor, or if you're thinking you're going to buy it online, maybe think twice about that. However, if you, have a piece that's gifted to you for a ceremonial occasion, then, acknowledge the true depth of the gift that's been given. And finally, the last not stone we're going to talk about today are pearls. Hawaii is famous for production of pearls, particularly from Honolulu. Let's see, I have it in my notes. Waimome, Honolulu, and Kualoa Ranch. These are places on the various islands that have high pearl production. Now, again, a pearl isn't actually technically a stone. What a pearl is that it's a piece of sand or a small piece of shell that's gotten into an oyster, and it's an irritant. It's an aggravating, sharp little thing, kind of like having a stone in your shoe when you're walking. And so, in order to protect itself, the pearl secretes a substance that coats around that stone or that shell and covers the sharp edges and makes it smooth so that it can stay inside of the pearl shell without irritating the oyster itself. It can stay inside the oyster shell, rather, without irritating the oyster animal. So, when we get a pearl, it's a really sacred thing. Again, it takes a long time to make a pearl, and an animal makes it. And I don't really approve of pearl farming personally, where they deliberately put irritants inside of oyster shells to force the oyster to produce pearls. I think that's cruel and inhumane, especially because at the end, the oyster is cracked open and the animal is killed in order to access the pearl. That said, if you can come upon natural pearls, or if there are pearls that are antique, maybe a strand of pearls that was in your family, something like that, treat it as a very, very sacred gift of transformation. And it's really about taking lesser circumstances, aggravating circumstances, challenging circumstances, and transforming them into something beautiful, something sacred, and something that is wholesome. The, you know, use of pearls in jewelry as a ring or an earring or necklace can be a sacred thing, but again, it really depends on where they came from and how people came by them. And I think, the upshot of all of this that you might want to keep in mind today and beyond is that if you are a rock hound like me and you like going to places like Hawaii and learning about the geology there, please note that everything that we've talked about today, olivine, pearl, coral, and lava stone, are all really sacred, limited, and precious. And it's not really for us at this point to take them from where they're being formed. It's better if it just sort of comes into your life. So I hope that you've enjoyed this. It's a little bit of a, both an instruction, but also an admonition to be very careful where your sacred stones and similar items come from. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see each other again next month. Thanks for coming today. Bye.